Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Molly,
Michael.
and today we are welcomed by a very special guest, one of my best friends, Patrick Bell. He's coming on to talk about all things Big Brother. This week we had the double eviction, and we're so happy to have you, Patrick. So just would love to hear more about how long you've been watching Big Brother and overall your background in watching reality TV.
Of course. Yeah. Well, first off, super excited to be here. So thanks so much for having me. My background in Big Brother reality TV, I started watching back in 2014, which was like the Frankie Grande season, I think. So it'd be season 16. And I don't know, I just kind of like fell in love with like the competition aspect of it. Like I'm a very competitive person. So to understand like the dynamic with everyone and kind of how they all like live in the same house, but like they need to be friends, but it's also a competition. I think that was just a really interesting insight for me. So I followed like religiously for the next 5 years. Even like when I went to college, like I would watch with my friends. We'd have watch parties, and then in 2020, I stopped watching. Kind of just fell out of it. Never really watched it again. And then I think because Molly and Michael, you guys are watching the season, obviously, and then a previous guest, Jeff, was also getting into the season. So I think that kind of brought me back into the swing of things. So definitely glad that I'm back here for the season.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I didn't know you had that long of a break, but we're glad you're back and watching Big Brother. I kind of had similar-ish, like I watched it for a period, then I missed that season. So it kind of happens in that Michael is not the same. Michael's watched everything, but at least
I
it's
have
good to
less of
come
a
back
life
to it.
than you guys are much
Well,
more social than I am, so I have time to watch every year. But no, it's interesting because I feel like season 16 is a very common answer that I hear for like people when people started watching Big Brother. And I don't know, was it because of Frankie like that you started watching? Because I feel like a lot of people like his fans started watching then and then just kind of kept watching after that, or was it just kind of coincidence?
It was actually one of my closest friends at the time was watching it, and because I think there was just such incredible gameplay that season because it was like Derek and Cody, and then like Frankie. I didn't know that he was. I didn't recognize him as Ariana's
Mm.
brother until I think because I started watching halfway through, so I like
Okay.
caught up, like got all my speed catch ups, but I didn't know that he was one of the housemates.
Yeah,
So I think just because one of my friends watched it, that kind of got me into it, and I think that just happened to be a really popular season that
it
has like
was.
kind of gone down in history. So honored that that was my starting season.
yeah, a good one to start off on. Well, speaking of that, now we can get into this season. So now that you are watching this season, we'd love to hear just we'll go back a week because we didn't cover this last week, but our final thoughts here on Janky World. What are your thoughts on that twist? And if we liked it or didn't like it, Michael, what were your thoughts?
So Janky World, I think, is going to be one of those twists that I look back at much more fondly than I thought about it at the time. Because I think for TV purposes, it was a fun twist. Trying to watch it on the feeds was a nightmare with constantly just like planes flying overhead, people whispering like quieter than they've ever had to whisper because they're like enclosed in such a small space that there was really nowhere they could go to like shut the door and talk normally with strategize. Like everyone could hear everything unless you were literally like trying to mouth something to someone. Like it was
They needed to write notes.
yeah, I know they really did. Like write it in the grass or something. But yeah, so I think my if you just kind of look at it from TV purposes, I think it was fun. But so I think like it was just hard in terms of like trying to watch it as a bigger fan than just someone kind of casually watching it 3 times a week. But yeah, overall, I think it worked out fine.
Yeah. What did you think, Patrick?
I think it was funny that they went into it thinking that it was going to be like this really great thing. So like everyone like go out to the backyard, and then I was like, "There's no way that this can be good." But I do think overall that it definitely added like a fun twist, and I think it also brought the house guests together. I think that they've all been like really close this season, but I think it caused them to like even to be even closer. And I think of like watching one of the vetoes, which I know we'll get into, like everyone was like supporting the person in the veto. So I think we've just kind of seen a level of camaraderie that we haven't necessarily seen in previous seasons. Well, I mean, I haven't watched in a few seasons, so maybe that's not true. But I thought it was a cool twist.
Yeah. No, for sure. And then, like, obviously, they were very miserable by the end because they were like, "Get us out of here." But then it made them thankful to be back inside. So when they did go back inside, or when it ended up being the next week, we see that MJ wins head of household for this next week. So at first, I was happy for her. I was thinking, oh yeah, like this could be good. We could see some change up here, but and okay, spoiler alert, we didn't actually see that change that I wanted to see. But in general, who do you think that should have been her targets going into HOH?
I think that absolutely MJ made a horrible, horrible decision here. And I mean, like, I guess we'll talk about the veto later. So I guess we're just talking about initial nominees here, which were Angela and Chemo.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she was so hardcore from the start when she became HOH trying to target Angela, which is such a huge mistake for her. Like, Angela is not a threat to MJ. Like, it's Angela is somebody who she could get on her side really easily. And like she did, she developed a closer relationship with Angela during Janky World that she didn't really have before. And all that work that she did just to target her the following week just feels like such a waste. And I don't know. I think that Chemo or Rubina would have been a much better target for her from the start, and getting out Angela just felt like a waste. But just a second before we move back to that, and this kind of is on this week technically, but the funeral for Janky that they did at the start of this week, I don't know why. I was like, why am I sad for this AI, not even a person? Like, but I fell in love with Janky this last week, and I want all the Janky merch. And then for them to have this horrible murder was just felt very, very sad to me. But, um,
I know.
anyways,
How could we forget about the Janky funeral? But I know it was actually really crazy that they had to make it so dramatic.
Yeah.
I know. But yeah, so I think from the start, MJ not thinking right. And I mean, Leah's the week before that, same thing. I don't know what it is in the water. I don't know if Janky World just totally messed with their heads, but the last few weeks we have not seen good gameplay here.
Yeah. What did you think, Patrick?
I think I go back and forth about like her take on choosing Angela because I think we've just seen like round or week after week after week Angela just kind of coast by because people don't think that she's a threat, but she made it to top 7 and then don't want to spoil. So made it to top 7, and I think people still continuously would see her as like, oh, like she's there's just someone better. Where I think, I mean, she has won 2 head of household. She has won vetoes. I think she is a serious threat, but I think that people still don't take her seriously. So I think that if Mackenzie didn't put her on the block, I think that she could have just not even had the stress of the block for like yet another week. I think that I would have probably done Rubina over Chemo, but I don't know. I think that I can understand why. I mean, he's won more than she has.
Yeah, for sure. And now going a little bit away from the strategy gameplay of it, we did get to see Zingbot this past week, which is always fun to see the zings. So, do you have any favorite or least favorite zings, Patrick?
I, I think his roast to or his thing against Chelsea is that was rough.
Yeah.
Like I think that the fact that the whole house was it panned to everyone kind of just in shock just shows that Zingbot was not playing around, and I think we all knew it was coming with his zing against Angela as well. I think the rest were all funny though. Like I was pleased with them.
Yeah, I know the Chelsea one really got me. I was like, oh my gosh, like the way everyone's faces just froze. They like couldn't even say anything.
Hmm.
And then Angela's, of course, I thought was also great. And now she was like enjoying it. It was kind of funny. It was like she's getting roasted, but she's just like dancing to her song.
Well, until right afterwards when she just started like crying.
Yeah.
Like she like tried to, I think like she really thought, okay, like this is gonna be on the part that's gonna be on TV, like for sure. So I'm just gonna like act like I'm taking it really well. And then afterwards, hopefully they won't show me actually like breaking down over it. But
Yeah.
I love a Zingbot song. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
like last season we got one to Corey that was really, really rough. Or was it to America technically? But whatever. It was roasting both of them. But like the songs always hit. I love those, but yeah, I think hers and Chelsea's were the two standouts. Um, I guess Leah's was the chubby chaser thing was predictable, but like I laughed at it, but yeah, the rest were kind of predictable.
Yeah. Yeah, those were my favorites as well. And then we see that MJ ends up winning the veto. And then she decides to use it on chemo and then nominates Leah as the replacement, which was crazy. Didn't even give Leah the warning to it. So, what are your thoughts on that first, Michael, before we get into general thoughts of ours?
I mean, everything about it was nuts. Like the fact that she was so afraid. Like she kept talking about the fact that she was afraid of nominating Leah because she thought she wouldn't get her jury vote. So brilliantly, she blindsides her. Like what? Like if you're gonna try to like at least give it to her, like kind of softly, like lessen the blow by telling her at least. But like to blindside her, like that defeats the entire purpose of like I don't know. It was just so stupid. It was, but I guess, I mean, like, if I think that she probably was afraid that if she told Leah, that Leah would convince her to like talk her out of it and then she would regret it later not doing it. But I think the opposite happened that she did it and then she talked to Leah and she was like, oh crap, I really did make a mistake. And now she still regrets it. So I don't know. That was not smart.
Yeah. What did you think, Patrick?
I think that she was letting Chelsea talk to her too much. I think that she was kind of allowing her HOH to be dictated by Chelsea, where I think it's evident like they were right from the gate like a dynamic duo. And yes, like they have kind of fallen. Not they haven't been as close game wise throughout the season, but I think that she was still someone similar to Michael what you said about like Angela in like MJ's corner. Like Leah was always going to be in Mackenzie's corner, and I think that because she didn't do her own due diligence to like cross check the information that Rubina and Chelsea had shared with her with someone that she should have a trusting relationship with, I think that she kind of allowed that to cloud her judgment, which then made the mistake, and she admits it's a mistake. So. Yeah, I don't think it was like a smart gameplay, and I also think it drastically shifted the season, in my opinion.
And Patrick, you were, I mean, texting earlier too. I think a really good point that Leah really started this by not getting out Chelsea last week during Janky
Yeah,
World. That was the start of this huge mistake. Was that if Leah had done the move that was best for her, she chose the wrong side. I mean, technically, like, or she shouldn't have chosen a side. Is what she
yeah,
really should have done by nominating one from each side, and then letting them battle it out. Whereas then, when you choose a side that you're not really a part of, like you're kind of the lowest on the totem pole there, then you pick a side and allow that side to have all the power, and then that's what happened. And now MJ keeps winning everything, and she is letting Chelsea do, yeah, like you said, Chelsea's making all the moves here really, and yeah, Chelsea hates Leah, so that's what happened.
I know. I feel bad for Leah because like she really did think that MJ was gonna have her back there, and so having her turn on her like that and like not give her that warning, like very bad jury management on that point. Because now it's like, who's if MJ makes it to the final, like Leah probably wouldn't want to vote for her now. But before that, maybe that she would have. So that's not good for her game. I think for MJ, just bad moves all around. But then we did see, unfortunately, that Leah got evicted, and it was the first unanimous vote of the season. So which is kind of surprising. I feel like Michael, you might have better stats on that, and how many times we've made it this far without having a unanimous vote, or is this the first
Never.
time?
is the
Never?
answer to
Okay.
that. Never in US. Canada, there was a season that didn't have a single unanimous vote, but those seasons are a little shorter too. But
Yeah.
no, last season, like for reference, I think there were only 2 votes last season that were not unanimous.
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
really crazy that in 10 weeks we was the first time that we got a unanimous vote this season.
Yeah. No, it was crazy. But
But
I
I would
mean, we're
I
getting
would
closer to
credit
the end now, too. What were you saying?
I was just gonna say I would credit that to the AI arena because they had to
Mm.
think of so many like scenarios early on in the season. When it actually like one of those happened, it was kind of so last minute. There was so much like chaos going on where they were like, okay, wait, what are we doing here? Like, what did we say we were going to do in this situation? That a couple people would, just not think about it all week long and think, okay, like I'm going to be the only vote here. Like I need to vote with the House so that I'm not targeted or whatever. Like people just kind of voted on more emotions, I think. And because of that, they were willing to actually do what they wanted to do necessarily rather than like just kind of going with the whole House.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And do you think there's anything that she could have done to save herself in the situation? Patrick?
I mean, the fact that she, first off, the fact that they were talking like about her when she was right up like tanning, that was crazy to me because I feel like in Big Brother, the house, you always need to know like where the people that you're going to talk about are. So I think that was just incredibly dumb by Chelsea and Rubina, and I think Kima was part of that too. Um, but then the fact that she knew that they were talking about her, only went up to Mackenzie to like vent, to not even try to like get ahead of it, and then again she continuously didn't try to like let Mackenzie know, or at least like ask Mackenzie like, hey, like I know they're talking about me, like what have you heard? I think that would have helped the situation, like the communication piece that I mentioned a few minutes ago. If she had been able to iron out with Mackenzie that Mackenzie was never someone in her line of sight, that she wanted to help Mackenzie, and yes, she had toyed with Chelsea, but didn't, then I think that that could have helped her case, because at the same time, Mackenzie had Chelsea in her ear. So it was like she didn't have Leah and had double Chelsea, so it's like she was going to lose that one.
Yeah.
Leah, that is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that MJ seemed to like her big thing was that she didn't want to seem like a puppet. Like she wanted to prove that she was playing her own game. And I think in her mind, doing this was her playing her own game. But I think if Leah had been able to talk to her and convince her, like, no, you're doing Chelsea's dirty work here, I think that
Mm,
would have been the piece that would have maybe saved her by her kind of realizing, oh no, I was doing someone else's dirty work by making this move. But it's harder. I get that it's harder. It's easier said than done when you know all the information when you're watching it. Like I think that Leah absolutely should have done more here, but also she probably convinced herself that she was being paranoid and that she didn't
mm.
need to do all that. And, doing more than she needed to do might have actually put her in more danger. So, like, I could see how I would think that in the house, but, from the outside looking in, yeah, that was a big mistake.
Yeah. For sure. But Leah looked excited when she got evicted to see Quinn again. So, do we think that anything's going to happen with Leah and Quinn in the jury house?
I don't know. What do you think, Patrick?
I think, I feel like no. I think maybe once, and then they'll be like, maybe not, because even Zingbot knows she's a chubby chaser, and Quinn is not chubby. So, and also just felt like for the longest time there wasn't like a spark there, and all of a sudden there was. So I'm curious if it was just because like that's just because they were spending time with each other, that they didn't have access to the outside world, which again they're not going to in the jury house yet. So I'd be curious to see if anything does happen. What do you think, Michael and Molly?
Yeah, I don't know. I was one of those people that was fully convinced that DR that she got right before Quinn left, where she was like, "Oh yeah, I am falling for him," blah blah blah. I was fully convinced that she was talking about like Tucker or someone else there, and that they made it look like it was Quinn. But then, like her reaction to seeing Quinn in the jury house made me think, "Well, maybe maybe I was wrong about that." But I don't know. Yeah, I think that I don't think there's any shot in the world that this will last outside of the house. Like when they
Mm.
actually go out in the real world, I don't think this will become a thing. But in the jury house, you're bored. They're like the only people there. There, I mean, what? Like there's going to be 4 people there now, I guess. Oh no, wait, yeah, Quinn.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, they're probably just going to be bored and maybe they'll try things out. But yeah, I don't think this is going to turn into the next Big Brother showmance.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe like kind of both with what you're saying. Like I think maybe like we'll try it like one time and then like be fine. Like be like, okay, never mind. We're just gonna stay friends here. But we shall see what happens. But this week episode was a double eviction, of course. So let's get into that part of it now. So we see that Chelsea wins HOH in a tiebreaker against Angela. So those were true or false, or not true or false. Oh yeah, they were true or false questions. But then the tiebreaker ended up being they had to guess how many minutes they were. What was it in Janky World,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So
Basically a full week. How many
a
minutes are
full
in a
week.
week, basically,
Yeah.
was the question.
Yeah. So then in that, you had to be under the number. So Chelsea was a lot closer to that than Angela was. And Angela looked very flustered when she was trying to answer that. Which obviously, like, I was trying to do it quickly in my head. And also, I was like, wait, like, if I had a whiteboard though, like, I would have been able to write it out and do it. But, like, that mental math was hard for me, but I think I would have gotten close. But that's just my side note. Okay. But um, speaking of the HOH though, so do you think that or how do you think this would have looked differently if Angela had won this over Chelsea? Michael, let's start with you.
So, I mean, I would just say my heart dropped. Like when Angela lost that, I was so rooting for her because that would have been the most interesting double eviction, I think, if Angela had won. Like, I don't know what she would have done, and that at least makes it exciting. And when I saw, like, before we could see her answer, like I heard gasps from the audience when like she like turned her board around and we couldn't see what she wrote yet. So I was like, oh my God, did she get it? Like, why is the audience so surprised? And I still don't have the answer to that, I guess, unless they just knew that she was like she way over. But yeah, that was tense few seconds there that I really thought she had got it.
Me too.
And she was so far behind. Chelsea was so far ahead, and then like the last two, Chelsea got wrong,
Mm-hmm.
Angela got right. So, anyways, yeah, I think if Angela had won, I don't know. I think that she probably would have like put up maybe MJ and Cam, or MJ and Chelsea, MJ and Cam. I don't know. I do think that she would have taken a shot at that side though, which would have made it really interesting. But I just don't know who she would have gone for. Like, I think she knows Chelsea's the biggest threat, but I don't know that maybe she would have been a little afraid to make that move in the quickness of a double and like not having even Leah there to like run ideas by. Like, she really had nobody at that point. So I really don't know, like, on her own what she would have come up with.
Yeah. What do you think, Patrick?
I really wanted her to win just like for the plot line, because I think she would have gone after Chelsea and Cam, and then if a veto was utilized against one of them, I think she probably would have put up either Rubina or MJ with the intention of getting whoever had stayed on the block. Um, and I think that would have just been such a unique dynamic to see play out, that it kind of just, when it got solidified as Chelsea, I didn't think that it was going to go the direction that it did go to once it was solidified as Chelsea. So I think it still was like interesting to me, but I wanted a little bit more.
Yeah, I was sad too when Angela didn't get that question right. Like I think everyone was like, "Oh, this would have been so good." But and also because it's the live HOH and live eviction, like I feel like the stakes were just so high in that moment that it just made it like, oh my God, like she was so close, and then now we have to see this whole eviction that's happening now from Chelsea and not Angela, which like
I
ended up
know.
being somewhat like I mean I guess expected, so it was like not that crazy, but The HOH comp was the crazy part.
Yeah. Doubles are
So
always disappointing, I feel like. I can't remember the last time that we got just a satisfying double eviction. Like last season we almost had it and it was great, but then like zombie week happened and it made it completely worthless. So it's been so long since we've had just like a really satisfying double eviction. Maybe since like season 15 or something.
wow,
Like I don't know. It's been a long time. But
yeah.
anyway.
Well, we saw that Chelsea ended up nominating Angela and Kima was her initial nominees. And it's always like it's like so fast that she's like has everyone coming in talking back out. It's like crazy how quickly I have to do it. But then they have the veto competition and everyone's playing in it and Chemo wins veto and takes himself off. So then Chelsea replaces Chemo with Rubina because she can't choose someone from her own side. So obviously, so then we see that happen. So what were your thoughts on the veto and replacement there, Michael and Patrick?
Patrick, you go first.
Um, I was surprised that Chelsea didn't try to separate Chemo and Rubina by putting them both up. So I'm surprised she didn't like take Angela off the block instead of Chemo. Yeah, yeah, right. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably would have been the better move. Although I feel like Angela is a comp threat more than we like think.
Yeah.
Like she would be in a normal season because the comps have been so much more equitable this year that like she has won a lot. So I don't think it was a bad move. Like I just don't think Chelsea could have gone wrong unless she put up MJ or Cam. So like I think whatever she did, I feel like was fine for her.
Which I feel like it's funny to your point, Michael, because I'm now here 15, 20 minutes after I just said that like
I know.
people don't see Angela as a threat, and then I'm one of the people that's now like, oh yeah, like there's someone else. But I think regardless of who was evicted, the remaining two were just going to partner up against
Yeah,
the
exactly.
MJ, Cam, and Chelsea trio. So I guess it didn't, like you said, Michael, it didn't really matter because I think it's going to be a similar dynamic, just different people potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
for sure. Well, we also see then Angela unfortunately gets evicted from a unanimous vote here, which that one, this unanimous one was pretty much expected there. But also only 3 votes that were had. But do you think that if we had a normal week that things would have been different? And what do you think would have gone down differently if so? Michael, let's start with you.
I do think it could have been different, and I don't necessarily. So MJ and Chelsea had kind of last week been talking a lot about Cam and how they don't know that they want to bring Cam all the way to the end because he's the more physical person and that there is a more usually so and we don't know this season if it's going to be the case, but comps tend to get more physical towards the end. So they're kind of talking about like, hey, maybe we can start this kind of all girls thing with Rubina. And at that time they were like, well, maybe not Angela, but like she was still there. And so there was like some talk of that, which would have been a horrible move. But I do wonder if there had been a full week, if they would have ended up like if that would have gained any steam and they would have actually like potentially put him up on the block. But yeah, well, I guess we'll never know. But I think it would have been maybe brought up, but I don't know that it would have actually happened.
Yeah, what do you think, Patrick?
I think that for Angela's own mental health, her being in the double of the double eviction was probably the best thing because otherwise she would have just sit and just sat around the house like really working herself up, which I guess from a comp standpoint we've seen has worked out like strategy wise for her.
Hmm.
So I think that also could have been an interesting dynamic, but I think just knowing that her time in the house had all season had been kind of like one foot in, one foot out. I think that for her, I was glad that she didn't have to like simmer all week.
And honestly, that could have been part of why they decided to get Angela out in the double because like they know that she's going to be hard to live with for a full week if she's the
Yeah.
target up on the block, doesn't win veto or saved by veto. Like, that's going to be not fun for them. So, like, getting her out this way, quick and easy, I think was probably part of why maybe they would target her over Chemo and Rubina, who are easier to live with and honestly don't really ever try to get themselves off the block. They'll just volunteer to go on it again as a pawn. Like,
Mhm.
so they don't care, and that's a lot easier to work with for them.
Yeah, and I don't even know how Angela would have coped, I feel like, without Leah there throughout the week.
Right.
So it actually was good for her to get evicted there.
Yeah.
And she seemed also very excited to go and hang out with Leah again. So that was exciting to see, I guess, happy-ish ending to that.
Put her on
Which,
every show. Put her on The Bachelor, put her on Perfect Match, put her on Love Island, put her on The Traitors. I want to see Angela everywhere now that she's out of the house. That's my new
yeah.
mission.
Well, I
It's
hope
my
she
calling
does.
card.
I feel like she's gonna have to do like cameo and all that stuff. Like her
Yeah.
personality is just like she just has
Oh,
it.
yeah. She'll
She's
be great on
gonna
Cameo.
she's gonna
But
thrive.
I'm getting you for your birthday next year, Molly.
And I'll do that for you.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so now this week, Michael, I know you've been watching the feed, so if you want to shed some light on some of the stuff happening, so spoiler alert, if you don't want to know, skip this part, but got some news to share. So Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, so technically some of this won't be spoilers by the time this actually comes out because Sunday night's episode will have aired and we're recording this Sunday during the afternoon. But it is basically a repeat of last week. MJ won Head of Household and she nominated Chemo and Rubina. And Chemo was the target at the start. Then MJ won Power Veto. So it's literally a repeat. Now, this is where things get kind of interesting is that there has been a lot of talk yesterday about potentially targeting Cam. That Cam, it was BB Comics was the veto, and Cam apparently did horribly, like so bad that they think he couldn't possibly have been trying. Like he actually like apparently took a break at some point, and they're like MJ and Chelsea are like spiraling about this. That they're like he's throwing competitions, he is working with Chemo and Rubina, like he wants to be in the middle, doesn't want to make any decisions to like clue them into whose side he's really on, and they're like, well now he's gonna like try at Final Four and just try to win out from there and get Chelsea. I think probably Chelsea thinks she's the mastermind, she's the target, and MJ is the one who's been winning everything for them. So, he's going to try to get out at least one of those two, and he's not going to be loyal to them. And so MJ's like, should we just get him out now? And so that's kind of the current situation is that it's very likely that Cam might go on the block here, potentially replacing Rubina is the thought right now. And then they're kind of thinking like they might not actually get him out. They might just kind of like scare him by putting him on the block. And I don't know. I think putting him on the block and not getting him out would be the worst thing MJ could do. But getting him out and putting him on the block and getting him out, I don't know. That's not horrible for them, I guess. But yeah, so that's kind of where things are right now. Don't know. Things could change today. They could chicken out and not do it. But right now, that's certainly likely. And with our veto streak this season so far of being used every week, I wouldn't be shocked. But yeah, what do y'all think about that?
Yeah, no, that is crazy. I feel like I would be shocked if she actually does nominate Cam here. I don't know if she would make that move right now. I feel like I don't know. I guess because he is a good in certain comps, like then like he is a threat in that sense. But I feel like game wise, he hasn't really done a ton. So like I feel like he should still stay in that sense. That like because he could be just like someone easier to take to the finals or to go with, and then you could win over them. So I don't know. What do you think, Patrick?
Well, it's funny. Before even I knew all of this, like 3 minutes ago, I was like, I think this week is really going to depend on who wins the head of household because it was going to be a 2 versus 2 because Chelsea couldn't compete. But I think,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've just been incredibly underwhelmed by Cam's performance all season, and I think like Molly, I want to say I texted you at some point during the season where I was like, Cam in every single DR is like, oh yeah, like I just gotta lock in and win. Like I'm just gonna go out there and I'm gonna win this veto. And like week after week, I was like, Kim, you were just embarrassing yourself. Like you come in here as a former professional athlete. Like, I think everyone was more scared of him, but I feel like he's just riding on Mackenzie and Chelsea's coattails all season. I don't see him doing much from a strategy like communication with the other team members. Like, he doesn't really talk much gameplay. So I don't know. Honestly, like, I wouldn't be opposed to him getting out, just because I think that even though Rubina hasn't done as much, if they go the route of, or I guess if they go the route against Cam and Chemo, um, that's where it gets tricky. I feel like I think they could keep Rubina, because I think that she at least has like worked a little harder. Um, she's tried more. But if Cam did that poorly in BB Comics, I would be upset too if I was working with him. So I don't really
Yeah.
know. I'm excited to see how it plays out.
No, it's interesting 'cause I thought this week was going to be so boring when I saw MJ won HOH. I was like, oh God, it's going to be Chemo and Rubina, and they'll, if they have to put up a bond, whatever, like who the other one goes. But actually, potentially targeting Cam does make this week pretty interesting, I think. So yeah, I think in a normal season, Cam would be winning everything. Like last season, we saw that with like Jag won everything at the end. Like it's just the guys had used to have such an advantage of winning because the comps were so physical, and this season they actually did change them to make them a lot more equitable. And we've seen a lot of like memory ones, strategy ones, whatever. And so like, yeah, people like Cam that normally you would think would be the comp piece aren't. And that's like, and I'll credit this idea to a podcast, RJP, Taron Armstrong, that he like someone like Cam when they're not winning everything is looks so much more like suspicious than like someone like Rubina not winning
Mhm.
anything. Like, they're like, oh, we don't expect Rubina to win much. But like someone like Cam who's so physical, you would think would win everything, and like winning not as much as you would expect looks suspicious. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think that definitely works to his disadvantage that he's not done as well as most people would have thought.
yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see what happens there. But as of now, who do you think of the final five has the best shot of winning, Michael?
I mean, it's Chelsea's game to lose at this
Yeah.
point. I think it just depends. Will anybody ha- go up against her? Like, will anyone win and get the opportunity to even take her out? I think Chemo and Rubina this week have started to see the light a little bit and see like, oh my God, Chelsea's in an amazing position right now. So if one of them does win something, win HOH or win veto, and potentially are able to get her on the block, it does sound like they at least understand that Chelsea's the biggest threat here. So fingers crossed that one of them has the opportunity to do something here. But I mean, not I kind of hope Chelsea wins just because I can't imagine anyone else winning here. Like I just it just doesn't feel right for anyone else to win. Maybe MJ, but MJ's made such bad strategic decisions that like it's hard to justify that. But yeah, I mean, I just can't imagine anyone else winning at this point. But I hope that she at least has a harder, like she has to earn it. Like I don't want her to win just because everyone else is making the dumbest decisions in the world.
Yeah. What do you think, Patrick?
I think right off the bat, I have really loved Chelsea's gameplay for most of the season. So I think of the five from like kind of a backseat role, I think she's done really good at like kind of being a puppet master, and like aligning herself with the right people when it mattered.
Mhm.
And I think MJ has been so con- like heavy driven that I think it's gotten her this far, but I think that people can recognize that like she's winning more than anyone else that's left. I think depending on how the rest of this week goes, if Chemo can stay, I would be very interested to see what can happen with that. Because I think that he has a better chance against Rubina, but it's like, can he make the move to target the three right now? But I guess it all just is going to depend on how this week plays out.
Yeah, we've still got a fair amount to go to see what's gonna happen between this week and finale as well. So
What do
still
you
got a
think,
lot to go.
Molly?
What?
What do you think, Molly?
Oh, well, I was gonna say the same kind of stuff about
Okay.
Chelsea. But yeah, I feel like at this point, like I do think it would be Chelsea winning it unless somehow they're able to target her and get her out. So if Chemo or Rabina, whoever stays, and then or potentially if they get out Cam, and then they can have a better chance at that next week for HOH and then target her. But at this point, like I don't think they're going to target her. In my
Mhm.
thought and my current beliefs of what's going to happen, but I don't know. That could change. So we should see. We shall see about what happens there, and lots to go. But I feel like when's the actual finale episode?
The
Um,
13th, the Sunday the 13th. So two
Sunday.
weeks
Okay.
from
13th. Yeah, that's right.
2 weeks from tonight.
Wow.
Wow. Oh my
Two
God.
weeks. So we'll be back
I would
talking
say it's
about this.
flown by, but I feel like I've been watching this season for 400 years at this point. So I
I
feel like
know.
these people were at my birth. So I don't know.
I know we do have only 2 weeks left, which actually feels like a long time, but also not a long time. So I'm excited to see what's gonna happen here. But any final thoughts, Michael or Patrick?
I
No.
think that this season would have been so incredibly different had Leah put up Chelsea and that had gone through. Because I think that everyone was convincing Leah that Chemo, T Court, and Ravina were the strongest two. But like I feel like anyone else could see that like the real like drivers of all the change and like the drivers of like everyone that was kind of leading the game was the Cam, Chelsea, and MJ trio. So I think just the fact that they were able to like convince Leah otherwise and then continue to push her like somehow from doing that, I was very impressed. But then I also think, wait, Michael, I'll let you comment on that. And then I
No,
kind of,
go go for it.
I just think that the other thing, so they when they did the screening of the movie, and MJ like won that and then chose the people that had not received a head of household because they like got something special because they haven't been able to hear from the family. I thought that was like the sweetest reasoning for why. Because at first I was like, oh, she's just gonna choose people that she just put up to get like a jury vote. But when she said her reasoning, if that held true and wasn't just like a front for like getting better jury votes, I thought that was a very sweet thing to do.
Hmm. Yeah, no, you see that on Survivor a lot with rewards. Like people actually like they don't just take their allies. Like I feel like people really look and say like who really needs this right now? Like who's been talking about this a lot? Like we do. I feel like at the end of the day, these people, even like they're non-alliance members, like they've spent so much time with them. So like they are like a little family, whether they
Mhm.
like each other or trust each other in the game or not. So that is always nice to see. I agree. But going back to your first point, that I think like Leah did understand that the week before. That was what was so frustrating, was that like all week Leah and Angela were talking, and I guess Quinn was there at that time too.
Mhm.
That Chelsea's the mastermind, like Chelsea, Cam, and MJ are a trio, and like Leah's been saying that like if I win HOH, I'm gonna put up MJ or Chelsea and either MJ or Cam. Like she was like she or no, sorry, she was saying that she would put up Chelsea and T-Core. That she understood that those two were the leaders of their trios, and that one of them, if you put them both up, it's the only way to guarantee that one of them goes home. And that those two sides would then have to fight with each other and try and have to appease Angela. She would be the swing vote.
Mhm.
And that they would then be groveling to Leah and Angela, and it would give Leah and Angela all the power. Whereas if you only put up two of one side, whether either side, that then the other trio gets all the power there, and they don't have to do what Leah and Angela want. So that was the only way to do that. And yeah, I mean, getting out T-Core at the time seemed like at least a more decent move than when she wasn't even up in the first place. But it obviously didn't work out when MJ won the next HOH, and Chelsea was there still to be able to get her against Leah. So
Mhm.
Yep. Well, can't go back in time now and see what would have happened, but that would have been a really good move on Leah's part if she had done that,
yeah,
and it would have been made for some more excitement. But that's okay. Um,
All
so
Star season,
yeah,
she'll have potentially. I feel like Leah's well liked enough. I wouldn't be shocked to see her in like a second chances type season. I feel like the audience liked Leah enough this season that that I could potentially see her there, and that would be like her storyline, her redemption storyline. Like, I made this big mistake. I let MJ talk me out of this great move that would have put me in a really good position, and I'm here to redeem myself. Like, I could see that.
Yeah, that would be fun. Well, thanks again, Patrick, for coming to join us this week. It was so fun chatting all things Big Brother.
I know. Thanks
And
for having me.
yeah, of course. And we'll chat with you all next week. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Let's Chat Reality and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. So we'll talk to y'all soon.
Bye, everyone.